In addition to the incredibly dangerous things that Donald Trump's nominees are saying during these confirmation hearings, what we're hearing over and over again when asked the most basic questions about the departments and agencies they're set to lead, I don't know. 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 Democrats made a great video about it, highlighting the fact that, again, in addition to just the dangerous statements, these people don't know the most basic things about what they're even doing. Let's play this video.
I don't know. I mean, the answer to that is I don't know.
Do you know how many babies born in this country are covered through Medicaid?
I don't know the answer.
As an attorney, doesn't federal law preempt state law?
I'm just telling you, I don't know the
I
answer
appreciate
to
that.
question.
I'm asking you whether you believe that we have to legislate in this area.
I'm not being evasive. I just don't know exactly what the law says.
How do we do that?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. I do not know the answer to that.
This should be a simple question.
I don't think anybody can answer that question. I cannot commit to that because I don't know. I don't understand that. Yeah, I don't even think that.
Well, let me tell you,
We have
you
a
do.
law enforcement branch at HHS.
Actually, you do, and that's CMS.
Let's bring in Senator Tina Smith, the great state of Minnesota. Senator, this is not normal. Now, you were questioning RFK Jr. and others. What's your takeaway with all of this?
Yeah. Well, watching him yesterday, I mean, I don't know how you could watch him and think that this person had the character or the knowledge to lead this hugely important agency. I mean, if you care about keeping Americans safe, if you care about making sure that Americans have access to their health insurance, this guy is clearly not up for the job. And what I love about that tape that we made is how this is what the Republican nominees are doing. They're basically just stonewalling. They're not even in a way trying to act like they have their acts together. And so here we are trying to paint this picture about their lack of qualifications and their character flaws as they go into these incredibly important jobs. And, Kennedy was, what I kept thinking about when I was watching him yesterday in the committee hearing is, here is this guy who has gotten by having some charisma, a lot of power, a lot of stature, and he's not used to being challenged. He's not used to people saying, what were you saying exactly? What did you mean when you said, as I asked him, that antidepressants are causing school shootings? And he just can't even deal with being challenged.
There used to be a time, though, where these issues would be bipartisan. I think about confirmation hearings 20, 30, 40 years ago. Sometimes even the kind of scent that an individual may have had, serious behavioral issues, that goes public. It's a major scandal. The person withdraws their name because there's pressure from both parties. But not only do we not see that happening here, I mean, we see Democrats being forceful, but it seems the Republican senators have even scheduled these hearings in a way to try to flood the zone, put them all at once, jam these unqualified people through. But having unqualified people shouldn't be a red state, blue state, RDI. This should just be about basic safety and competence. What's going on there? Why is that the time? Why is that going on?
I know. Well, so I totally agree with you. And I'm not excusing my Republican colleagues because I think that they all need to grow a spine. I mean, they swore allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and not to Donald Trump. So I think that they have an obligation, a responsibility to live up to that promise. But I also think we need to understand what's going on here. You've got the White House threatening to run a primary opponent against them. You've got Elon Musk out there saying that he's going to spend millions and millions of dollars challenging them if they don't fall in line. And then you've got these sort of, MAGA bots out there on social media threatening people. And I mean, there is a corruption to that we need to see and understand. And I think it's having an impact on some of my colleagues. I'm going to be, I have a lot of respect, I'll tell you, for Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, who is on the finance committee. He's going to have a really decisive vote on RFK. He cares about vaccines. He is a doctor. He voted to impeach Donald Trump. And what is Bill going to do when he is asked to vote for this nominee? I mean, I think it is going to be a real test.
What about now the White House saying that the memo of that government freeze, that Donald Trump didn't even see it, just the Office of Management Budget, they somehow did some end run around him. And then when it came to the buyout and the severance offers, you have these things that are announced, it causes chaos. They kind of walk it back, but then walk it forward. Then you have Trump's press secretary saying, well, we did rescind the OMB memo, but we didn't rescind the freeze, which is what the memo says it was a freeze. And then the federal judge from Rhode Island is like, what are you even talking about? It seems that the freeze is still in place. And your response was also, you're clarifying nothing, but what's going on? This is having a real world impact on people's lives, Senator.
Oh, totally. I mean, I've spoken to so many people yesterday. I met with a group of Minnesota Head Start leaders, and they literally will be looking at whether or not they can open their doors, whether they can continue to make payroll for their Head Start teachers if these federal grants to pay for Head Start don't flow. And nobody has a clue what the hell is going on. And it has real life impacts for people. Just as you say, I had a message, another example of this. You were describing how they sent out this memo to millions of federal employees saying, hey, if you tell us by February 6th that you want to resign, we'll pay you your full salary through September, but you got to let us know by responding to this email. I mean, first of all, that's almost certainly illegal. But how would you feel if you were one of those millions of employees, like this man that I had a message from at the Minneapolis Veterans Hospital, who was like, I don't know what to do. I've devoted my life to serving veterans at the hospital. I processed thousands of labs. I have taken care of hundreds and hundreds of veterans. And I'm scared. If I take this, will I ever get paid? If I don't take it, are they going to see me as an enemy? It has, as you say, real life impacts. And it's not that these folks are incompetent, though they may well be incompetent, but I think they are creating this chaos in order to it's a power grab. They're creating the chaos as a distraction while they are grabbing all this power.
I've been referring to Donald Trump as a WMD, a weapon of mass distraction, because as a lot of this is going on that we're talking about as well, what else is happening that's not getting a lot of attention, though we're covering it here? Donald Trump fired a board member of the National Labor Relations Board, the first female Black board member, and now they are at a stalemate. They can't form a quorum, which means the main body that addresses grievances, the formation of unions, the body that deals with all of these labor issues is basically frozen out. Now that board member is going to challenge it. There's going to be all of these lawsuits filed. But can you explain to people how harmful that decision was to labor? Because there were a lot of people, and I asked this to President Biden too, when I interviewed Biden. I said, you did a lot for labor, but a lot of labor didn't vote for you. They voted for Donald Trump, even knowing that Trump was going to harm them. And now we're seeing this. So speak to labor out there if they were confused about this, what this really means.
Yeah, well, so I think that a lot of people who are in labor unions or are working people look at the federal government and they go how are you fighting for me? How are you helping my life be better? And I think we have to prove it, and we have to be willing to break some of the norms that we have, and be willing to make big changes. But what Donald Trump is doing, as you raised with the National Labor Relations Board, is he is basically taking the one part of the government that is dedicated to standing up for workers' rights. When workers are in a battle with management and management is trying to overturn their rights to come together to organize for better wages and better working conditions and fair schedules, when that's the fight, the Trump administration right now is taking away the power of labor to actually have a fair adjudication of those battles. That's what the National Labor Relations Board does. It's basically saying, we're just not going to let you guys operate. And again, they're thwarting the will of elected, that's the law. So they're basically breaking the law when they take away that right. And who's hurt by that? Like, you may be asking, okay, but like, what's so bad about that, Tina? Who's hurt by it are the thousands and thousands of Americans, like the ones that are getting ready to try to organize Whole Foods, owned by Jeff Bezos, one of the wealthiest men in the world. They're hurt because their chance to fight unfair labor practices, as Jeff Bezos tries to stop them from organizing, they don't have anybody who has their back. And that's what's wrong about it.
I remember so vividly, so unfortunate that a lot of the country, a lot of voters didn't or didn't reflect on it. Those press conferences that Donald Trump held during COVID, inject yourself with bleach like a miracle, it's all going to go away. Just the horrible things he said. He held that press conference earlier on Thursday where he blamed President Biden, former President Obama, Pete Buttigieg, and diversity. And he said he believes diversity was basically to blame for the horrific plane crash that took over 60 people's lives. That's the first thing he came out essentially and said at this press conference. I just, my neighbor, before I told my neighbor, who's a big fan of yours and a big fan of the network, that's the green fence in the background. She said to me, she goes, Ben, it's the cruelty. They're so cruel. And I said, I'm going to bring that up with the Senate. It's cruel.
Well, I mean, leaders should rise to the occasion. The thing that is so horrible about this moment is that there are dozens and dozens of families that are trying to be united with the remains of their loved one because they died yesterday. And that is something, there is a human connection that we all can feel about what that feels like, and an urge to like comfort people. That's the most human of emotions. And what does this guy do? He tries to turn it into a political thing. This is why people hate politics, because they hate it when people do things like this. They hate it when Donald Trump does things like this. And of course, here is a person who is incapable of taking responsibility for anything that he has ever done. What did he do when he first came into this office? How long? It feels like months ago, but it's only been a couple of weeks. He fired people who were actually capable and competent to be ready in moments like this, to do the investigations, to keep us all safe. And instead, what he does, instead of thinking about keeping us safe, he's thinking about how to shift blame and make it into an ideological or political issue. And I mean, it's just shameful. It's just shameful.
And finally, Senator, you're right. I mean, this is why people hate politics. The problem is when people hate politics, sometimes they conflate all politicians. Is Trump any different? This is what they would say, right? But is Trump any different than Kamala? Is he any different than Biden? Republicans, Democrats, independents, it doesn't matter. They're DC, they're the swamp people. We don't like any of it. So when someone makes all of these promises to them that they can't deliver, though, and they're going to destroy it and take it down, that appeals to some Americans. So what do you say to all the people right now who are just like repulsed by it all, but by it all, it is bringing in everybody, and we have to use politics. You're in politics to make a positive difference. So what do you say to all those people, though, who are just like, I can't handle it. I'm turning it off. Yeah. I hate them all.
Well, I mean, some of those very same people are in my family. My father, who I adore, is 95 years old. And I actually tell him sometimes, like, it's okay to not watch television all the time. You don't have to be tracking this by every minute. But, could I say, Ben, that one of the things I think is, like, people are turning to forums like this, where it doesn't feel so political. It doesn't feel so canned. It doesn't feel like you're listening to a talking head. You're able to actually hear people having a conversation. You might not not agree with everything that you hear, but at least it feels real. And I think that that helps us to kind of break the wall between the work that I'm trying to do here, fighting for people, standing up for people, pointing out the hypocrisy and the corruption that when I see it, and to do that in a way that feels real and not like it's just kind of the battling talking heads that I think politics has been reduced to. And then I guess the last thing I'd say is that, I got my start in politics working at the local level, organizing, talking to my neighbors, connecting with people, building a sense of community. And I think that we all need to return to that. It's not all face-to-face anymore. A lot of it is online. And that's true. Things are not the same as it was when I first started doing this work. But I think that fundamental drive that people have to build relationships and to come together in common cause is still very much there. And it's always better to do something than to do nothing when you see work that needs to happen. And I believe that's the place that we are in our country right now. It's always better to take action whenever you can. Feels better.
Senator Tina Smith, you make me feel better chatting with you and better about our democracy. Please come back. We love having you here on the MeidasTouch Network. Senator Tina Smith, the great state of Minnesota. Thank you so much.
See you soon.
Everybody hit subscribe and let's get to 4 million subscribers by the end of this month or next week. Let's shoot for next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.